such sights to show you.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
I said, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains in.
I want to play a game.
What's the boogeyman?
As a matter of fact, it was. This is God.
We all go a little mad sometimes. Haven't you?
But sometimes that is better.
Welcome back to Oblivion, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Dusty Lane.
I'm Jason Mitchell.
And we are the Cinebytes. We're here to raise a little bit of hell, and today we are raising it with Justin Martin from the 2024 indie horror hit Crackcoon.
Yes.
Hey, I love to raise hell. I'm in the right place.
Absolutely. Now, can I call you Frankie? Because that's just who you are to me now. I bonded so much with your character in Crackcoon that you're not Justin anymore. You're Frankie.
I know, right? I have to get the voice together so I can be like, I guess.
Although I do kind of want to say,
whiny and complaining.
right.
Yeah.
I do kind of want to say your name like Kendrick Lamar says mustard, just Juster.
I'm here for it. Look. Call me whatever you like. Yeah.
just don't call me late for dinner, right?
Exactly.
Now we're gonna get into Crackcoon in a minute here, but you also have appeared in several other horror projects such as Shriek Show, 1031 Part 3, and Killer Campout Part 2. Do you think you've found your niche in horror, or are you also actively seeking roles in other genres?
Definitely seeking roles in other genres. I do think after all these years, the word that all actors hate to hear, typecasted. I do feel like I've been kind of pigeonholed into that avenue. It's not a horrible thing. I mean, it's effortless for me to do those roles. It's pretty simple.
At least it's comfortable.
It's comfortable. But you just said something that I don't like with acting. I don't want to feel comfortable. I want to be challenged.
Sure.
So if I have roles that are so easy for me to do, I get bored very quickly. I do. Right. So I do want to push myself to do things that I haven't done. And I've done a lot of other things. I've done comedy, drama, and like documentary-based series. But I do think as far as film is concerned, horror, thriller, that genre is the majority of the films that I have done versus like television or other short projects. And I'm not complaining. I love it, but I do hope for more potential opportunities in the future that can like get my feet wet in other avenues,
Right. Sure. Well, as long as it's okay with you, we are a specifically horror podcast, so we are going to focus on the horror here.
Good.
We celebrate it. That's exactly what we're here for. We love Crackcoon, obviously. And not only did we love Crackcoon, it looks like we're going to get the opportunity to love it a whole lot more, because not only is there one sequel in the works, I definitely saw Crackcoons, plural. But I also saw Crack Squatch, and did I see a Crocodile in there as well? We're just building the whole Crack empire piece by piece.
Literally every animal you can possibly think of is going to be on crack with our
animals and cryptids, apparently.
yeah, you never know what comes next. So Crocodile was supposed to happen, and I don't believe Crocodile is going to happen now. Okay. So that was a much bigger. What's that?
Was there not another movie already called Crocodile? Am I making that up? Am I crazy?
There may have there's Meth Gator.
Oh shit!
I did not hear about that one.
I don't know if there's another one called Crocodile, but there could be. Probably. There's so many of them out there.
Gonna have to do a little digging for Meth Gator.
Yeah, Meth Gator. I haven't seen that, but I did Google it to see what it was all about. We were in motion to get things kind of rolling for that. I want to say it was at some point last year when we were talking about it, and it's a much bigger beast, literally, than a raccoon puppet or two. So I think the logistics of it all to have that particular animatronic item built and then flown here from California, and then obviously you have all the other budget-wise expenses that you have for cast, crew, and all the filming and stuff. So it really went above and beyond what I think the target was for an indie film project, just because
Right.
it was. I mean, the crocodile alone was going to be $10,000 to $15,000. So that in itself is a portion of an indie budget. So that did get scratched, but Crack Squatch, it's still in place right now because it's supposed to be a trilogy type of series.
Okay.
So there's potential that could lift. But the next phase would be, like you just mentioned, Crackcoons, plural, which is much more chaos than the first one was. I'll say that.
Right. You mentioned the expense and the difficulty of dealing with a big old crocodile, but it's a whole lot easier to deal with a tiny little Crackcoon puppet. One thing I'm curious about with this, I happened to see one of the writers on this was Todd Martin. Is that any relation, or just happens to be somebody else named Martin?
Just a coincidence. But Todd is a great guy. He's practically can be family if he wants to be.
Yeah. When you work on a project such as the one you did, I feel like it comes naturally to people. Like you do feel like a family once you've completed the project. You know what I mean? Like
for sure.
It was the friends we made along the way, right?
Yeah. You're with them for long enough that they get on your nerves. Sometimes you just want to, beat them up, and other times you just want to love on them. It literally becomes like a brother and sister to you because you're around them for several weeks or several months at a time.
1000%, yeah.
I love the marketing of just having that constant bold white crack at the head of the title, followed by whatever animal, I feel like that's such a genius way to market a franchise. And that's coming from the guys that came up with the Cinebytes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Got to take it over.
You're right.
No, it does look great. It's a nice constant in that, and I feel like you could take it a number of different ways. I think I mentioned when we were talking about the when we covered Terrifier, I said something about we're coming up on the fourth installment. Of course, we're wearing the art shirt today.
Yes.
But we're coming up on the next installment of that, and I think Damien Leone said that that's where it's going to cut off. But I'm kind of here to say, like, why can't we take that in different directions? We've already got a couple of Terrifier movies based on Halloween. We've got one based on Christmas. Why don't we just do a holiday thing? Keep it going. We could do all kinds of stuff with art.
Oh, I agree.
I kind of get that same vibe from the Crack series. You know what I mean? We could. There's no end to the animals that you can, and scenarios you can put them in to continue the Crack franchise.
You're absolutely right. I mean, it's the sky's the limit. Yeah. Even then,
we can definitely go with birds. Yeah, exactly. Great minds.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Frankie a little bit. Obviously, our episode on Crackcoon is going to be releasing this coming Tuesday. So we just covered it. It's fresh in our minds and everything. Your character surprised us a little bit because, like, yes, you do play that gay boyfriend, gay best friend archetype. But you also, at some point in this movie, you sort of take over as a surprise protagonist, and you end up carrying the rest of the movie. Is that something that happened accidentally, or was that always the plan? I mean, obviously, it was probably always the plan for Frankie to continue on to the end, but in the way that you did, you sort of took over, and you were, from my estimation, you were driving the movie at that point.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, first of all, thank you. I mean, I really appreciate that. Frankie appreciates that, as bitter as he is. I don't, it was, so to your point, like, it was written that way in the script as it was laid out. And, as we film and right before filming, there's a couple different edits done to the script, a couple changes here or there, and that's kind of typical for that to happen. But I don't feel that Frankie was initially one to steal the show. I really don't. I think the way I read it in the script was he starts to, I mean, obviously, as you guys saw, he starts to kind of just, I mean, he's running from the dang raccoon the whole movie pretty much, literally running away screaming. But it was almost written as if he's meeting different people on the way or kind of learning a little bit more about what's kind of going on around him as the movie progresses. And I saw it at first as where he kind of just blends in or kind of fades around a little bit with everybody else. Like Finn, who plays, who's in Crackcoon, Rosaria Elsa is her name, who played Finn. And I love Rosaria. She's like my sister. I honestly thought through most of it by reading the script that she was the one to kind of steal the show because she was even starting in the movie before Frankie came on. She had her parts before she ran into me. And I kind of read it as if that group of friends that she was involved with were kind of the ones kind of primarily focused, if you will.
Sure.
But I do think while filming it, it felt like it kind of changed different direction a little bit.
Right.
Um, it did. It felt different. Yeah.
You know, you mentioned Finn, and I find it interesting that, like, in a movie like this, which is kind of half creature feature and half slasher when you come down to
Mhm.
it, you would expect there to be a single final girl at the end of it, and you would expect to latch on to Finn because, you know, it's obviously the natural. She's sort of the cast out of her friend group, and you know,
Mhm.
she even goes off by herself to do this own, you know, her own personal journey.
Right.
So you would
Right.
expect that, but at the end, we kind of have a pair of final girls, and I think that that lends to the strength of your character. You know, the
Mhm.
magnetism that Frankie has, and it's just, you know, like I said, a strength of personality thing, which you can't help but be drawn to Frankie. And yes, he survives alongside Finn at the end of the movie. So I think
Right.
there's an interesting, you know, it sort of subverts the expectation of a normal slasher movie. We were expecting her to be there the entire time. We were
Right.
not expecting Frankie. In fact, there's a fake out death somewhere where we think maybe you did drop off, but nope,
Mhm.
Right.
you're swinging through the whole thing. So
Yeah. Everyone
and
did. Actually, when I read the script, I thought I died, and I was like, "Damn it!"
Right.
Pleasantly surprised, but I was like, "Ooh, that was a close shot." Yeah.
right.
Yeah, I feel about halfway through when I realized Frankie was smarter than everybody else.
Yeah.
You know, just kept encountering the character that wouldn't listen.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And I could just tell. I was like, he's gonna be left.
At,
I know
yeah.
he is. He's gonna turn around, and
Yeah,
yeah,
whether
sure
it's
enough.
smarter than or at the very least, he has the information that others don't.
Right.
And he's
Right.
trying to convey this the entire time, and nobody believes and nobody's
Right.
listening. He's getting
Right.
frustrated because he's got to explain it over and over and over again.
Mhm.
But I mean, I think we make a point in the episode that, like, well, yeah, of course you have to explain it again because these people haven't experienced what you just did.
Right.
Like, they're not going to
Yeah.
believe that there's a crack addicted raccoon out
Right.
there. You
And
know?
who would, right? Shame on them for not believing. But yeah, I mean, honestly, that's and that. To your point, I think that's kind of where it started to move in a different direction because you could see the level of impatience that he had and just the continuous frustration of like, I'm ready just to get this over with. Like, you guys don't believe me, but he's literally right behind me. Come on now. And it's just, it gets to be a point where it plays a toll on him. And a lot of the one liners, which is one of my favorite parts of filming this movie, is a lot of Frankie's lines, those quick puns or those just laugh out loud moments where he has this crazy thing that just spews out of his mouth. A lot of that was improv, not actually in
Oh,
the script.
that's
And
that's where
I,
I was going next
Yeah.
for
yeah,
sure. Was that all ad libbed? Was that scripted? But that's that's very impressive.
I would say
I was laughing.
70% of those lines, yeah,
It's so
were
good.
That's
So good.
amazing.
improv. Yeah, thank you. No, it was a lot of fun. I mean, I felt like it was needed because I wanted Frankie to stand out and
Yeah.
just be somebody that people could relate to. If it's not like them wanting him to die, maybe they just want to be by his side and laugh their asses off until the end. You
Right.
know?
Right.
So that lends a little bit of gravitas, I guess, to my assumption of it being sort of an accidental takeover by the end. Like, yeah, you're just slinging them one-liners out all day. You know, little mini Groucho Marx over here, just
Right.
you know, tossing them out. But
So good.
um, but that being said, you also sort of rode the line between being the surprise hero of the film and then reverting back into that stereotypically gay character in terms of reactions.
Mhm.
For example, he kept trying to warn everyone, you know, about what was happening, getting annoyed, explaining it over and over again. But then when confronted, he also spazzes out. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like, um, in the end, when the raccoon jumps up on Finn, Frankie's just kind of screaming, just sort of flailing around. Um, and, you know, it sort of takes you back into that, like, oh, is this going to be our hero, or has he been this whole time someone that we expect to fall by the wayside at some point, get attacked by a raccoon
Right.
and be taken out?
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, in that moment, Frankie is like screaming at Jonathan to shoot, but you know, he's also just kind of dancing around, not grabbing it.
Yeah.
So like, what are we gonna do here? There's a conflict of, yeah, I don't want you to do that because you could make a mistake, but at the same time, I'm not willing to jump in and actually get my hands dirty doing anything.
Right.
Um,
And
Similar
games don't
with
have work guns, so
right, right.
I don't want to blow my own head off. You know.
And it was kind of the same thing with the Denny attack. Like you were right before that, you were complaining about all the bugs, etc. And then when Denny goes down, Frankie doesn't do anything to help. And as a matter of fact, on the flip side of that, he tells Denny, "You'd want me to save myself," and then he just runs away. So like in
It's funny you caught that because that line kind of got faded out in the background, and that piece we filmed one-liners, so many different takes to find one that fit. But when I saw it, like in the premiere and on Screenbox when I watched it too, I'm like, I feel like you can barely hear it. So I thought nobody was even going to catch that line. It's funny.
we're
You
pretty
mentioned
detail oriented here on the Cinebytes. When we cover a movie, we like to get in depth, make sure we provide as accurately as we can
that's
the
good.
correct details of what's going on. So you got to get up pretty early in the afternoon to pull one over
Yeah,
on old
yeah,
Dusty. So-
absolutely. Yeah.
but I mean, at the end of the day, in your opinion, who is the one true Frankie? Because we're going to see more of this character. I'm curious what form he's going to take going forward.
Mm. Um, so I think, and again, Crackcoons is very dependent on a couple different things. It is in talks, and there has been a script which has been, sent back to be revised a little bit, or is being sent back to be revised. Um, if it happens, if the funding goes well and things can happen, I'm really hopeful for it because I want Finn and Frankie to be back. And in the second movie, if I could spill a little bit, I will say it's Frankie 2.0. You'll see a lot of Frankie traumatized in this movie. Um, Traumatized about everything. Like any little thing that makes a noise, he's jumping. Like every little thing. So, but as you progressively go through it, you kind of see how his motivation behind what he's trying to do in the second part and those who are with him trying to accomplish a set goal, which is it's crazy. The storyline is crazy, way different than the first Crackcoon.
I'm sorry, even crazier than Crackcoon,
It is. I mean, it's
if that's even
several
possible.
of them, like mother and babies. So it's a
Oh, there's a
lot.
litter of Crackcoons, and they
There's
all get into it. Oh,
a lot of chaos. But yeah, what I can say is, Frankie starts to wear off a little bit on others, like around him, and I think they start to understand him a little bit more. So they're more trusting of him. They're not, denying against what he's saying or what he's so traumatized about, and it kind of becomes more heartfelt halfway through from what I was reading. It becomes a little bit more meaningful, and there's a different story that kind of shows in the relationships that Frankie builds with the other characters with him.
yeah, I think Frankie's sort of too important to the story at this point. Like, there has to be a certain strength of resolve. Like, yes, sure, he's traumatized, but at the same time, there's a certain point you're going to have to put up or shut up and deal with it, and you're going to have to come to terms with what you're dealing with and confront it. And I guarantee not a single person that watches Crackcoons is going to want Frankie to go anywhere by the end.
True.
He's just such a fun character, like between him
Yeah.
and Denny and his interactions with Finn. I mentioned in the episode that it was making me a little sad because you kept calling Finn Huckleberry. You didn't have any knowledge that Val Kilmer was going to die, but like in the moment that we watched it, that was fresh news, and I was like,
Yeah,
oh.
yeah. And
And
that's
that's the
actually
term that you
explained
kind
a
of
little
latched on.
more. That's explained a little more too in Crackcoons, which it's obvious if you know who Huckleberry Finn is, but some people don't in Crackcoons. So I have to kind of explain it a little bit. Like, okay, come on now, let's not be stupid. We know what it means. So it's funny because that's part of the story too. And but I will say this was it to me. It was the most challenging role, even though it was more comedy than anything. Um, I mean, I am a member of the LGBT community, but I don't act like Frankie by any means. You
Right.
wouldn't necessarily know I'm gay if I'm out and about because I don't act like it. I don't, scream rainbows from the top of the mountain.
Right.
But Frankie does. So having to kind of get in that mindset and be super extra flamboyant, which I don't like. I do not like that. I don't like to act like that. I also don't like other people around me that act like that. So it was hard for me to channel that because while filming, I literally felt like I was a girl. And
Yeah,
that's how
again,
Frankie was supposed to be, as gay as gay can be. And I was like, oh, here we go.
right.
Um, I
The stereotype and the stigma, it's hard as a gay man perpetuating that because there's such negative connotation applied to it. It seems,
Hmm.
for no reason,
People
obviously.
left People left some crazy reviews out there, specifically about me and Denny and the way we were acting. And see, some people take the higher road. I am not one to do that. I will get as petty can be. I will go like literally underground and kick some ass. So I'm like, look, bitch, I am gay. So you're talking to the Bible of gay here. Just not be fucking
Right.
stupid. I don't even know if I can cuss, but that's like my 6th cuss word.
Oh yeah, fuck
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Okay. Okay.
Oh yeah.
But I was honestly pleasantly surprised after seeing the final performance when we went to the premiere of Crackcoon. And I'm not gonna lie, at first I didn't know if I wanted to see it. Halfway through, and a lot of people don't know this because I haven't mentioned it, but halfway through, like a lot of things emotional happened to me personally, and as I was trying to film, I just kind of was getting very sidetracked. And I think I didn't like the way I was feeling in between certain like scenes and certain parts of filming. Filming lasted a long time. We actually had to go back and film because we had some lost footage. And unfortunately, so it spanned out for quite a few months overall. And, towards the end of it, I was like, obviously, I'm here to do a job and I'm going to do as good of a job as I can do. But I didn't know if I wanted to actually sit there and watch it because I feel like I was going to be my own worst enemy and critic. I know that Frankie was very moany, complainy, just whiny, just that I didn't want to come off as being like annoying. And I felt like while I was acting it out, I was like, oh my God, everyone's going to hate me. Like everyone's just going to bash me. And when I saw it, I was like, that's not how it looked at all. Like it actually played out completely different. Yeah.
It did not land that way at all. It was pretty quick to realize that this was the character that we're actually going to bond with. I feel like some of the other characters were what's the right word, like lighter.
Yeah, and they all fit into an
If that makes
archetype.
sense.
You have your group of college kids. You have your random couple on the side of the lake. You've got, the gay drug dealer, the drug dealer and the gay, man wrapped up in one. But like, yes, there are all of these stereotypical archetypes that all of these characters fall into. But there definitely was something different about Denny and or I'm sorry, about Frankie and Frankie's relationship to Denny held a lot of weight when things started to change, I feel like.
Right. I wanted to talk about the cop scene. I thought the cop scene was good. There was the extreme, I guess we might as well say left and right,
Right.
but we had what we were calling MAGA cop,
Yeah.
the guy that was like very offended
Yeah.
almost,
What do you mean you guys are married? I thought
Right.
America was great again.
Right.
But then the other cop is the complete 180.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh, send me some pics.
Yeah, he's like, congratulations.
He wasn't written to be that way in the script, which is so funny.
I
He
think that's
wasn't written to be
amazing.
that way. Yeah.
There's such a subtextual representation of the dichotomy in this country between, the two ideologies, I guess we'll say, and people planting their feet firmly on either one. Because on the one side you got, well, what do you mean you guys are married? And on the other side, oh, congratulations, is this ring from K Jewelers? Oh my God.
It was
And
so good.
it was such a brilliant scene because of that. And if that wasn't written intentionally, then it was a happy accident, and I was actually really impressed with that.
Yeah. I am glad it turned out to be. That was actually my favorite scene filming the whole movie, was that police chase scene.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you mean the 15 mile per hour police chase?
It's a hefty chase, I'm telling you. And we actually got a real local cop in that county to be willing to film with us. So he was driving, following us, and then obviously, they cut and put the actors in the police car, the scene cut or whatever. But the police was willing to do it. He gave us some funny looks. Like he looked at me and Chris O'Rocky, who played Denny. He gave us this weird look. Of course, he's like, "Oh my God, what did I sign up for?" So we thought he wasn't going to be willing to help us out, but he was a good trooper, no pun intended. And it was because we filmed that scene probably for about 2 hours or so, 3 hours maybe. We did a
At the
lot of
speed you were
takes.
going, it would have taken that long to get from point A to point B. So
Yeah,
yeah.
2 miles an hour. Yeah, yeah. It was crazy. It was a long scene, but definitely my favorite one. The most
Yeah,
fun that I had was in that scene. Yeah.
yeah, of course. I feel like it's great that we sort of had that even accidental, the social commentary on that point. But there were some instances where I think things might have been taken a little too far, and I wanted to get your opinion as a
Mm,
gay man on it. So we're gonna get a little, like I said, we like to cover these movies in detail and give
mhm.
behind the scenes information as much as we can. And above all else, we want to be funny with what we're doing. We want people to have fun
Right.
with this. We're here to celebrate the genre, obviously. But sometimes we encounter situations where, accidentally or otherwise, we have these topics that require a little bit more serious discussion.
Mhm.
So, yes, this is an indie movie, but some of the content I think takes things just enough further to almost venture into the exploitation film genre.
Mhm.
And a lot of that I feel like has to do with the language. Some of the only things I didn't like about this movie were some of the choices used in the script. For instance, there's a moment where a white character walks up to two other white characters and
Mhm.
greets them by saying, "What's up, my N-words?"
Mhm.
And that's the only point in this movie that made me genuinely completely uncomfortable. I
Right.
think we didn't need that in any way. We all live the life that we live every day. We encounter that on a daily basis. And I
Right.
don't know that there was any merit really to addressing that. Um,
Right.
so I mentioned in the episode not needing that line of dialogue. It doesn't do anything for the story except make me dislike this drug dealer even more than I already do. And I wasn't crazy about him when he walked
On
up in the
top of
first
him having
place.
cornrows of that, right? Yeah.
Right, exactly. But it's
It's,
just I feel like it's not something that we needed in our silly movie about a crackhead raccoon. You know what I mean?
yeah.
That being said, there are a couple of other derogatory terms used in this film as jokes that I actually do think land because it's
Mm,
used by a very clearly openly gay character to another openly gay character.
Mhm.
And I think that it couldn't have been used in any other way to work in this movie. But,
mm,
speaking of your relationship to Denny, it is very playful. You guys are roasting each other the whole time. At one point, he tells you not to be such a bitch. He calls you a homo at one point,
mhm.
and he also there's a joke that I thought did work because you guys find the drug bag. He flips it over to show that the drugs have been
Oh yeah.
removed. And the line he says is, "It's an empty bag, fag."
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm sorry.
it
I
was
didn't mean to
funny.
say it, but yeah, it
Well,
came out.
that's part of my point. I
Yeah.
was trepidatious to decide whether we were actually going to use the language, but if we're going to address the point, let's address the point.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Good.
obviously it's not something that we condone on this episode, but I feel like it's something
Right.
important to talk about because I mean it's funny you mentioned earlier, oh, I don't know if I can cuss in this. Listen, dude, I cuss like a sailor. Fuck comes out of my mouth every 30 seconds.
Right.
But this is an
Right.
entirely different conversation.
It
And
is.
it's interesting too, being having grown up in the generation that I grew up in, Jason, I know that you know a little bit of this is true as well.
Mm,
Growing up, we thought that it was natural to say things like "quit being a fag"
right.
and "oh man, that's gay," and all
Yeah.
those things meant were they didn't have any connotations, as far as I was aware, to
Right.
anything having to do with homosexuality. It was just "quit being a fag" meant stop being an asshole,
Right.
and "oh man, that's gay" meant I don't like that. And
Right.
it wasn't until, maybe mid-teens or something that I realized, wow, that's really fucked up that we use these terms in that way, connecting it to something that's bad or negative or wrong.
Right.
Um, so I guess I'm just, using that language in this movie, I think doesn't work in the N-word situation, but it works in
Yeah.
this because of your relationship to Denny, and it feels natural. It's
Right.
almost like the way that I'm viewing it is the way Black people will naturally use in conversation, the N-word, and it's just saying like, dude, or whatever.
Right.
It's like, I was talking to this blank the other day, and it's just, it's a completely natural thing to address in that way. So I guess what I'm trying to say is this more a thing where do you find the use of those words offensive in this script, or is it more of an empowerment thing, taking those words back for your own use and sucking the power out of the prejudice,
Mm,
sucking the power of the prejudice back out of them?
yeah. That's a good question. So I am totally on your side with the first scene that you were talking about with the other drug dealer who said the N-word. I was uncomfortable with that. Now, the actor who played that character is Rick Germain. I love Rick as a person,
Sure.
as an actor. Um,
He's doing his job. I'm not saying anything negative
well,
about
he's doing his job, but I don't believe that line was in the script. So he decided to take it there.
him.
And honestly, I did not know that that was even in the movie. When we went to the premiere, I talked to the director producer, and he was talking to me on the side, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know how people are going to take this." And I was asking him questions. He actually mentioned that to me. He was like, "There's a scene towards the beginning here where somebody says the N word." Mind you, I brought friends out to the premiere who were all African American, so who all sat by me in the seats of the theater watching this film with me. So right when I heard that, I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, you know.
Yeah,
So
watching it, even in my house, I was like,
yeah. And I felt obligated to tell my friends as a heads up because I was like, I don't want you to think like I didn't know this was it wasn't a scene that I was in. I had no idea it was filmed. So I don't want you guys to think that I was willingly a part of it. And my friends were a little bit disappointed, but they were like, well, I guess it's like whatever, it's dark humor, whatever, it's part of the film. But it was shocking. It was because you can't take it any other way than how it was
right.
delivered. You know what I mean?
Right.
Coming from a guy who has cornrows and who wanted to take it to the next level of that character and really give it everything. Personally, I was also uncomfortable with that. The gay stuff. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, all that being said, there is, when we are dealing with indie movies, and if we're venturing into the realm of exploitation as well, part of the beauty of them, and I'm not condoning or excusing any particular language use, but those movies are a space that we can explore things that we can't anywhere else. So I think it's important to keep the spirit alive of
Right.
being comfortable enough exploring those things, but then again, maybe making some, common sense choices on what's okay to use and what's not.
Yeah, like some smarter choices. Yeah, I agree with you. And, it is all in the spirit of, I don't even want to use the word fun when I'm relating to that particular instance, but
Nothing fun.
right. And it's not fun, but in the spirit of trying to appeal to an audience who's just going to laugh because it's like a spoof type of movie and they think that that's going to add value, probably is the reason why it was thrown in there or agreed to keep it in the final edit. But I definitely I didn't like that at all. So I agree with you on that. The gay stuff was, so a lot of those one-liners, like, the comment we mentioned where he was talking about the bag, it's not in the bag, instead of the F word, FAG, that wasn't in the script. And neither was a lot of like the homo and gay stuff. Now, me and Chris naturally, because we're both LGBT, so together offset, and we filmed a couple movies together, including Street Show. He was like the ringmaster guy in Street Show. So we've had a bonded relationship where we're so goofy and loving and gay in general, just like gay friends, but we're just having so much fun. So naturally filming this, at some parts, we didn't feel like we were really filming. It's weird to say, but it felt natural. It felt like we were just in our own comfort zone, gossiping and being like we normally are together. A little bit more dramatic because we're not really like that in real life, but we wanted to feel comfortable enough. And I think we got so comfortable to where some of those lines that were added in, we just rolled with it. Now, obviously, I didn't take any offense to it myself, just because I am gay and I'm like, whatever, it's fine. But we did talk a little bit about it to make sure we were both cool before we started adding lines to the script, knowing that we were going to say things here and there about just different terms used in the gay community or against the gay community even. So we both agreed that it was okay to do that. But again, some of the comments that we've got from people on different sites and blogs about this movie, those were some of the things they bashed, was saying, oh my gosh, it's stereotypical gay people, that's offensive. And, I don't disagree with them. I guess I see it from my point of view being a gay person where I don't care as much because I just have a thick skin. But I can see where some people may take offense to it,
Well,
and
the thing
you
about
know,
it is, those people do exist, and like I said, in your relationship with each other in the movie, it does feel natural. I've had gay friends that do bounce off of each other like that, and I have heard ones use those words toward each other. And again, it doesn't mean anything. That's just
right.
it's something that they take ownership of, and it's almost like a pride thing. You know, not again, not pun not intended. Um,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
on the other side of that, there's also times where it's going to be taken a little bit too far.
yeah,
However, there is something to be said for um, we're making a movie here. We're trying to get natural performances. If those
right,
people do exist on that side of it, then these people do exist on the other side of it that are going to use, inappropriate words for the race that
right,
they are. And maybe it lends a little bit of gravitas to the film and to the role in, making us dislike this person if they're
right.
doing things. 'Cause, like, there are people that do these things, and including those in film. I think, like I said, I didn't think we needed, the N word, but
Mhm.
there's also, now that I'm thinking about it a little bit deeper, including something that is going to be so offensive and so, blatantly ignorant and evil and not good, like it of course puts you in the frame of mind where, like, okay, yeah, I'm ready for this motherfucker to die. And then he
Right,
does. And then we're happy,
I didn't
you
even
right,
know?
think about that until this conversation right now. That it was over the line, but maybe that was the point
Part of its use was to
to
get us,
yeah,
on the other
it
side.
definitely could
right.
be. I think a big thing too with exploitation films too, or any of these indie ones, like I love it. I'm all for it, but
Right.
that line, you're okay with cutting a chick in half via her vagina, and it's not nearly as big of a deal as
Right.
some of this racial stuff that is actually way more sensitive. You know
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. A lot of people's reactions, it was like a 50-50 split,
Hmm.
but I was surprised at, and again, maybe it's just the type of people that came out to the premiere, or type of people that I know were going to watch the film without us promoting it necessarily. But um, for some reason, I mean, some of the comments we got were negative, and other comments were they thought it was over the top funny, just adding value to the relationship between Denny and Frankie, where they're like, "Damn, he really said that." Like they really took it there,
Mhm.
knowing that if we're gay and we're okay with it, they're okay with it. But again, I think it appeals to certain audiences, and some people are not going to see it that way. Some people are going to see it a different way. Um, there is another, so I don't want to give too much because this is also very offensive, but there is a line that we did not say in the film, and this was the part where, towards mid-end, I will say, the park ranger comes up, and you see me and Finn limping, and we're walking up to him. This is after all the other people that were in that friends group is no longer here. Um, so there was part of that scene where, I have the cuts all over me from the raccoon attack, and um, one scene that somebody, I'm not going to say who, wanted the park ranger to say to me when Finn kind of threw me on him to run back into the house, was about, like, "You don't have AIDS, do you?" And that was deep. That was deep. And again, it was like that dark humor, like, should we go there? Should we not? And, kudos to the cast who were there. Myself and the guy who played the park ranger, he was like, I'm not going to say that. Like,
Right.
I'm not going to say that. And they even looked at me like, do you mind? I'm like, well, I mean, it's not me saying it, but that's saying the F word to a gay guy or calling him a homo, and then saying something about AIDS does take it to a different level.
Right.
Because that's like not a joke in the community of LGBT for those who do have that. I mean, that's a pretty big thing. So, um, again, we didn't even put it in, we didn't actually say it, but it was brought up like, hey, let's try to take with this. And we didn't end up doing it. But I think throughout the movie, that level of dark humor, let's see how far we can take it, was kind of brought into scope to see how comfortable people were kind of pushing the boundaries a little bit.
I think it was a good choice not to use that joke, and I'll tell you why. We still kind of get it. Frankie, as a matter of fact, says, after the big finale, blood sprays all over the place, and Frankie's like, "Well, if I didn't have rabies before, I definitely do now." So obviously, it's not the same thing, but that sort of contracting
Right.
something via blood, we still have that joke in there. So,
Right.
good kudos, not going too
Not going
far
for
with
that
it, and
far.
we still get
Yeah.
that same basic joke set up in
Yeah.
another way. So,
So between the use of these crazy words, we went through that, and the gratuitous nudity, which I love,
Yeah.
that's what
A lot
Jason's
of
for.
that.
Jason's here for all the blood and all the tits. Let's do this.
So
Yeah.
that's why I mentioned this movie kind of rides the line between, just a normal indie flick, an indie horror flick, and an exploitation film. But there's one thing I definitely wanted to talk about. I love the long shower scenes. Everybody does. That's part of the exploitation. But one of the worst fake movie sex scenes
Oh my
I've
goodness.
ever seen.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I gotta say they did really mail it in for that one very clearly. I mean, obviously, no matter what movie you're talking about, and whenever you stage a sex scene, spoiler alert, guys, sex isn't actually happening, and you have to stage it in whatever way,
Hmm.
to make it look like it is, but not actually be happening. It's a hard
Right.
line to ride, no pun intended.
Yeah.
Um,
She didn't get. She didn't get to, but yeah.
But yeah, that one was especially egregious in my opinion. I was like, that was another one where I was kind of grimacing while I was watching it.
Yeah, it's funny. A bunch of the actors were in this. We had a big like cabin rented, where we were staying, and then we were filming. So a bunch of us were in the location, obviously not in the same room, but we were right outside the room where they were filming that scene.
Mm.
And some of us could see through, and the actress was comfortable with people being there, seeing her naked, whatever.
Mhm.
I was thinking it was going to be more close-up shots where you wouldn't be able to tell that it's not actually happening, like how it
Ah,
ended, where you see the guy wearing, half clothed. So
right.
when I saw that too, I was like, "Oh, okay, did
Bold
they do
move.
that?" Yeah, because she's going at it like it's really happening.
Right.
Right.
And
It
I'm
just
like, maybe they could fake it like he just slipped it through the front of his
No.
boxers,
I
but
did think about that, but he's also standing at least a foot and a half behind her. So
he is, yeah,
but
yeah,
that's the thing. The thing about this whole thing, why we're talking about it, is that it's something that takes you out of the movie.
yeah,
And I'm not sure how deep you ever really get in a movie about a silly crack addicted raccoon, but I was enjoying it. And then all of a sudden this thing hits you in the face and you're like, oh, I need a drink. I got to go to the bathroom or whatever. And
yeah,
it's just one of those things. If you're trying to keep people invested in a movie, there are other ways to go about it. Like you said, do close-up shots from like the midriff up.
yeah, yeah,
There are certain items of clothing that can be procured and weared that make it
yeah.
look a little bit more natural than it is. So not that it's a huge problem or anything, but
No, but it doesn't make sense.
right.
It doesn't make sense. You're kind of like, well,
Yeah,
it's
that's the only thing right there. Well,
yeah, it's like a
that's
big question
enough
mark.
to take you
Yeah,
enough out of the movie to where you're like, all
you're
right, well,
questioning stuff now. Yeah.
right, exactly.
Mhm.
Now, one of the stupidest things that happens aside from that I thought was hilarious, and again, it makes it more how much we're dealing with this puppet here, which throughout the movie, anyways. But when in that same scene where the raccoon first comes in, you just see the person toss it over the window.
Oh my
I don't know
god.
if you guys thought about that, but it was so stupid. I thought it was hilarious, but I'm
Oh, I
like,
loved
really?
it. Yeah.
Like, it
Yeah,
was just so
there's clearly someone just pushing it over the ledge, and then you
literally
hear it just thud. You know.
right, right.
But you know
Um,
what? We're watching an indie movie. We know it's silly. We know it's ridiculous. We know it's over the top.
right.
Sometimes there are things like that that work. Like it made both that part that we're talking about right now made both of us laugh because it's like, oh man, that's
Right.
ridiculous. So
Yeah.
that's an interesting juxtaposition too, because like, yeah, that's another thing that sort of takes you out and reminds you that you're watching a movie. But at least that was something funny where I could be like, ah, the stupid raccoon puppet.
It takes the serious away where you think, oh my gosh, something bad's about to happen because
Mhm.
this raccoon is like lurking in the window, and trying to get in, but then it's like, okay, so it's a humorous moment. But and shout out to Morgan Malam who was in that scene. She actually won an award. I think it was back in November, December time frame, end of last year, I believe. But she won an award for best kill scene in an indie horror film of 2024. And she was up against Terrifier, the newer one that came out. I was very happy for her, of course, and very happy for Crackcoon. But she was up against some really good competition, and that scene got best kill. I was like, wow.
I will say the way that all that goes down, we won't spoil any of it for anyone that hasn't seen the movie yet, but it's definitely a very interesting kill, and I think she sells it very well. It was something that I pointed out during our covering of the movie, that earlier on in the movie there are some less convincing performances, but the further it goes on, it seems like the death scenes are more and more convincing. So Morgan definitely did a bang up job for sure.
Yeah, she's a good scream queen. But I'm overall proud of Crackcoon and I think we won 3 awards, if not 4. I think 3 awards in different categories for Crackcoon.
Very nice.
So,
nice.
Yeah.
I feel like that's, something that is a fun thing to pop off, and, that kind of thing is fun to like pop in and turn your brain off for a little while until we get to the social commentary. So that's just all the thought-provoking things I wanted to kind of check your temperature on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I got to ask, we know now, hopefully, that you'll be returning as Frankie in future projects within the franchise. Do you happen to have any kind of timeline on an installment? Is the Indiegogo up? It's not up yet, right?
But it's not up yet. No, it's not up yet. It should be coming up this year.
Okay.
Originally, I think we were targeting like a fall time of kind of getting things started as far as even filming goes, and then starting the crowdfunder. But I don't know, because the producer at Fuzzy Monkey Films has a couple of different projects being worked on around the same time. So they're working on their next project, which is going to be at the end of next month, which I was supposed to be a part of, but unfortunately I had to back out of it. And that was T-Rexorcist, which is crazy.
Oh no.
But T-Rexorcist was going to be a fun one. So I think they're going to be, and the script was really crazy and wild. I don't know if they're going to fully do the film this year or just do like a more of like a pitch for it to create some momentum around it and raise some money to actually do the full film. So with other things going on this spring and summer and early fall, I'm not sure if we're actually going to be moving forward in 2025 or if it'll be more like 2026 with Crackcoons. Gotcha. But I am hopeful that it's this year. I really want to get back into my onesie jumper. I won't be wearing that again. Trust me. I told Brad Twig, the producer, I was like, I'm not doing blonde hair and I'm not wearing a onesie this time.
I didn't realize it was a onesie, but
Frankie's gone through some changes. We, obviously we have to update the character.
Yeah, we got to change.
The outfit was fire. Personally,
well,
I was like,
nice. Rocked it for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I was feeling
it. It felt nice wearing it because it was really hot when we were filming, so at least I wasn't like in a full,
Right.
Yeah. It was lightweight,
like something that breathes.
Yeah. That was pretty good. But yeah, fingers crossed. I think we should see at some point towards the end of this year, third or fourth quarter of the year, we should see a crowdfunder go up for the sequel.
Gotcha. Well, it makes me a little bit sad about the T-Rexorcist thing. That sounds a lot like Velocipaster to me. And I was going to ask now, I need to clarify, is this going to be exorcising demons out of a T-Rex, or is it a T-Rex as an exorcist?
I don't know if I can say. I don't know if they want me to say. So I can't say, but it may be what you think. I'll just say that.
One of the things what you think.
That's good with us.
So what about any other projects you have coming up, and not just necessarily in the horror genre, but like anything else you got working?
So, I mean, a quick plug for Matt Anderson, who's also a producer in the indie community. We did a film with him last year around this time, actually, called These Things. That will come out, I think, at some point into this year or next year. They're working on the final edits. That has a lot of familiar faces in the community as far as actors are concerned. That movie is kind of, it's like Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, I think is what it was called. It's very much in that avenue. It has to do with like killer koosh balls.
Wow.
And
I
some
didn't
of
see
them have
that coming.
faces on them, like your teeth and everything. Like some of them are really gnarly. But that should be coming out at some point in the next 6 months to a year at the most.
Give me
Killer
trivia.
Camp Out 2. So that was another Fuzzy Monkey Films production, who also did Crackcoon. So Killer Camp Out 2 came out around November or December of last year. So just a couple, well, now like 6 months ago. Time is flying. That's available on different streaming platforms as well. I think the main one's probably Amazon Prime. But that one was a really fun one. And for me, that one was a character change for somebody that I've never really played before. Because it had different ranges of emotions in the movie, where I start off one way and then towards the end it's a complete twist,
Right.
and you see a whole different side. And it was, I loved it. I think, other than Crackcoon challenging me, I think one of the scenes in Killer Camp Out 2, I had never been able to act with such rage and envy, and that I got to do. And it was wild and fun and crazy. It turned out really good. So that was a really fun film. Killer Camp Out 2 was more of your 80s slasher horror film, because it was actually based in the late 80s, early 90s. And it was good. I met a lot of people on set of that one that I'd never met before, that came from different states. It was just your typical killer camp movie. I'll just say that. But that I would definitely check that out for anybody who's watching, because that was a really fun one. And it's actually like a story that makes sense. Not to say other films aren't, and not to say Crackcoon isn't, but there's a story, more of a story to Killer Camp Out 2 that evolves and evolves and evolves more and more as you go. It's a little bit less random chaos, and a lot more things make sense, in my opinion, with Killer Camp Out 2. But yeah, that's the big projects. Of course, we talked a little bit about Crackcoons. I did like a short recently, which I don't need to talk about short films because they're not really anything to talk about. They're too short. But I did one recently, surprisingly, with going through some health issues I've had the last 3 months that have been lingering and still not getting answers on. I was nervous to do it, and I did have some issues while filming where things started to spike up, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to get through this. Thankfully, I did, but that's why I had to also cancel T-Rexorcist, because I have a lot of appointments coming up and potentially procedures. So I just got to get myself back to full health before I can jump back into a bigger project. But it's kind of where I am right now. This short will come out at some point mid-year. That was actually a Towson University project. So I played a doctor in that one. That was a fun role. I've never been a serious person. I'm more of a jokester. I like to have fun. So playing a serious role is it's interesting, but it's not as fun for me if I have to be so serious. I'm like, I can't crack a joke and make somebody laugh. Come on now.
Right.
But
we definitely understand when the universe starts making different plans than you did. Actually, recently we had to take a little bit of a break because a couple of things happened, one right after the other, and we had to take a couple of weeks off. So no worries about any of that, of course. Totally respect that, and I'm sure we could sit here and talk to you for another couple hours and goof about Crackcoon and all the silly stuff we liked about it. And overall, let me just say, like, any of the shit that I talked about it today, don't worry. I still enjoy the movie. We still have a positive review of the movie. I think anybody that watches it will enjoy it. Not only the movie itself, but also our coverage of it. But that episode, like I said, is going to be out on Tuesday, April 29th. If you want to hear all about the shenanigans Frankie gets up to in it, go ahead and check that episode when it drops. Justin, why don't you tell people how they can follow you?
Sure. So primarily on Facebook. I use Facebook and Instagram the most. On Facebook, I am Justin Martin. I do have a weird middle name on there, Ken Dahl. I won't get into that story, but it's a stage name I used to have when I was younger. So Justin Kendall Martin, and then on Instagram it's Kendall_JP. That's how you can get in contact with me. I am also on IMDb, but there's a couple of Justin Martins out there, which is why
I would assume there might be, yeah.
They put the P in the middle because it helps distinguish, but there's also another one of those. So I think I'm number 2, Justin P. Martin on IMDb, but that's a good place.
It's funny you mentioned that because I did see the 2 next to it, and I was like, wait, does that mean he's like a junior? Like his dad was also Justin Martin, and he's the second?
No, whoever the first one is, it's an actor in California who, if you go on like streaming apps and watch Crackcoon and look at the cast list, that's whose picture pops up when it says Justin Martin. It's not even my picture. I'm like, what the hell? I don't even know how to get it changed. I mean, I don't know how to get it changed, but he stole my thunder.
That's a drag, man.
Well, that sucks. Yeah. But IMDb, I'll have all my old projects I've done, potentially some new ones coming up as well. So those would be the places to kind of stay tuned for what's to come.
Hell yeah, man. Well, speaking of staying tuned, thank you for telling us, plugging all your socials and telling people where they can find you. You will hear all of that same information as it pertains to the Cinebytes at the end of this episode. And I think that about wraps us up. We had a good time. We hope you did too. Thanks for joining, everybody. And as always, dreams are fleeting. Only nightmares last forever. Follow your nightmares.
I bid you welcome.
Thanks for listening to the Cinebytes podcast. If you like what you heard, follow us on our socials at Cinebytes Pod on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and X.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, rate, and review. It really goes a long way in helping us reach more listeners.
You can stream the Cinebytes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, and many more popular streaming platforms and YouTube.
Questions or comments? Suggestions for future episodes? Contact us at cinebytespod@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the show and help us make it a better product for you, subscribe at cinebytespod.buzzsprout.com.
Until next time, keep following those nightmares.